So apparently Xbox is getting into the cloud-based MMO game because no one else has done it. Literally, no one else has done a purely cloud-based MMO. Not to my knowledge anyway, or the research I could find on it. At first, I thought it was ridiculous. I'm like, Xbox, why? Why would you do this? Why would you try a cloud-based MMO? Servers already don't handle new players well. You think a cloud-based only game is going to handle an MMO? But then I really started thinking about it. I'm like, what? Why could they do this? What's the point? What do they have in them? Is it because a subscription model so they can continuously get money from people? What could it be? But then it clicked. Game Pass. It already uses xCloud, which, if you're an Ultimate member anyway, you can basically play Xbox games anywhere. And the fact that they already have a step in the door with cloud gaming, they would have a first MMO party on Game Pass just to go along with the cloud-based gaming. Because they could do it either way. They could have just the cloud version, or maybe you could download it onto your Xbox. I'm sure they want to put it on there somehow, but they said if they can play anywhere, then that's the logical way to go. The interesting part about this is that apparently it's going to have a scaling complexity, meaning depending on the device you use, like let's say you use an old iPhone, you're going to be able to do certain tasks versus if you are on a PC, you'll be able to do full Battlefield, you have the full experience. So somehow they have the technology where it's going to determine what you can do based on your device. That's really interesting. It might peeve some people because they have a older phone that didn't want to upgrade anyway. They're like, I can't use or get the full experience of an MMO now. But I understand the point since the hardware isn't there, even if it is cloud gaming. Not to mention the studio that they're working with, which is Mainframe Studios, which no one's ever heard of. It's apparently their debut game, which sounds like a monumental task. Especially it's going to be a cloud-based and MMO. So it's your first game, it's an MMO, and it's cloud-based. That they got to have a lot of confidence in the studio, especially basically a no-name studio, to have this kind of workload on them, because it has to be a completely new territory in terms of technology, this scaling thing that they're talking about, which I think is the most interesting part about all of this. This all started when Jez Corden, Windows Central reporter, he was on the Xbox 2 podcast, quoted saying, "I do know that Microsoft's working with a studio in Finland, or at least I've heard they're working with a studio in Finland named Mainframe on making a cloud narrative game." This was then backed by GamesBeat reporter Jeff Grubb, who apparently was doing his own research, and the working title is PAX D, or PAX Die, I don't know how to pronounce it. And again, it is a cloud narrative game, which refers to the ability to get into the game from any device. For anyone who's listened to me on my Nintendo's podcast, you would know that I can't stand cloud-based gaming, especially on consoles like on the Switch. It just seems ridiculous. It never works great, especially if it's wireless. So this is going to have to be something else. This is going to be completely futuristic, like 5-10 years down the line, because there's no way, even with 5G, which isn't completely available as much as the market would let you to believe, that we can do this kind of stuff, even if we all have iPhones, 10 and better. It's like, sure, the technology is there for the hardware, but not for the cloud-based gaming anywhere. And the whole adaptive scaling based on the hardware, that just seems a huge step in the, like a futuristic direction. Now, personally, I think this is going to be one of those games that gets shelved and no one really wants to talk about again, like Scalebound, but we'll have to see. Do you want to see a cloud-based MMO? I mean, I do and don't. I think that we're just not there yet, as much as they'd like to believe, especially, again, with the adaptive cloud-based technology. However, to be fair, Phil Spencer is a madman. He is the American version of Sakurai, which we all know from Smash. So it's possible that he could stay committed to it, but again, I just think that it's not going to be anytime soon. I mean, we're just hearing about it basically through rumor at this point, so we'll have to just wait and see. Oh, one last thing to note, while I'm not a cloud-based gaming fan by any stretch of the imagination. I imagine this is just where the future is leading us, especially with MMOs, considering with a cloud-based one, they have to worry less about the hardware that's needed and just the internet, which, I guess to a degree they don't have to really worry about because that's just going to advance whether they like it or not. And, it's going to be available to everyone versus, having a incredibly beefy graphics card or great CPU. Those aren't just readily available anymore. Well, I guess before COVID they kind of were, but, they're kind of out of the consumer's hand right now. So internet's never out of the consumer's hand. It's just always going to be there. So this is where I kind of see future MMOs going. It might just be thinking 3 steps ahead. So maybe they're just pulling a huge galaxy brain. We'll have to wait and see. If you somehow liked what you heard, I'd really appreciate it if you liked and subscribe. I'm trying something new here. If you want to listen to the podcast and Tengu, there's going to be a link in the description below. Tell your friends, family, dogs, pets, enemies, political allies, political enemies, and I guess a housemate or two. So have a good one, guys.